So today this video is going to be a little bit different because I was kind of really inspired while I was sitting down watching my boyfriend play some video games, and I ended up drawing a whole bunch and sketching a whole bunch. So what you're going to see here is like the painting process of completing these two. I don't know if I would consider them both spreads or if like the two pages together are a spread, but you're going to see me complete these two pages through the inking process, the painting process, and just seeing me finalize these sketches, which is different than the way that I want to do most of my sketchbook videos because I quite like showing the entire process from start to finish, where you see my sketching, my erasing, my redoing, and then painting and inking and using colored pencils and markers and all that jazz. So today is a little bit different. You're just going to see the painting process, but I still really wanted to share this because this sketchbook spread was kind of a process for me. I'm still not sure if I like it in the end, but we'll talk about that more as we get into the video. So, without further ado, hi, hello, how are you? If you're new around here, feel free to suss out the vibes, watch this video. I really like to just create super dope, chill art content, and I hope that that's something that ends up appealing to you. And if you're not new around here, what is up, my dudes? How are you doing today? I'm really excited to get into this video. To start my process, I'm just doing the same thing I always do, which is going over my sketches with a colored pencil that's kind of similar to the color scheme that I want to use for the spread. I don't know why I started doing that. It was kind of something where I used to, because I use a ballpoint pen to ink, go over my sketches in ballpoint pen and then have to go over them again because if I used gouache, it would just get all over the ink, and I always use colored pencil, and so the colored pencil would get over top of the inking and kind of dull it, and I just didn't really love the way that looked. So in the end, I decided to choose to start using a colored pencil to line the drawings because I quite like the look of the sketch underneath the painting, basically, or these sketches or anything in general. I really like the way that looks, even though I don't love, at least in traditional media, I don't love the way just inking with colored pencil or colored line art looks. I don't know why that is, because I do quite like it in Procreate. Obviously, like my ending little animations are almost, I think all of them have line work that is completely colored, and that was just because it looked a lot more stagnant in Procreate, and I don't totally know why, but I really like the colored line art in Procreate, but not so much here using traditional media. So the theme of this spread is ducks. I wanted to choose an animal that I'd never drawn before, and I actually have never drawn ducks, and I love chickens, so I figured it was close enough. I also really like this one sticker that I have from Gel Arts, actually, that is a little duck that's running, and so I kind of took inspiration from that and from a Pinterest board of references to draw these ducks. The page that you see that I'm sketching over here is definitely a first run kind of page. I don't know that I love all of the sketches, but it was one of those learning experiences. I was figuring out how I want to draw them, and then the page to the right is definitely kind of more of at least my style in sketch form. I mentioned I'm not totally sure I love the way I end up painting the ducks. I think I would return to this subject again and try it again and see what I can do, but I was trying something different. The colors I end up using are sort of like a neutral gray and a soft pink color, and I just, it's not really something I would normally gravitate to, so I guess maybe that might be, oh my goodness, that might be why I ended up not loving it, because I can tell that I'm particular with my colors. They can kind of make or break a spread for me, and I don't know that I chose the right colors for this, but at the same time, the ducks I was looking at were all white, and so I was like, I have to go with some sort of gray color, but I don't know. I would love to hear, your thoughts down below if you like these colors or if you think they work together for ducks. But I keep going back and forth. I'm sure I'll have a better opinion as I watch through the whole video of exactly how I feel, because I'm not sure that I'm super in love with this spread today. Throughout the spread, I use a neutral gray from my handmade watercolors palette, and I use a Potter's Pink, which is definitely a little bit more red than the Potter's Pink that I'm used to working in, like my I guess you would call it a professional palette, but I wanted to use my handmade watercolors for this this particular spread because I knew that natural or neutral gray was definitely something that I wanted to use for the ducks. Again, like not super confident in that decision, but I figured it made the most sense since a lot of the ducks were white that I was using for reference. And then I go in there with some yellows, a soft lemon yellow. No. I hate lemon yellow. What is it called? It's lemon ochre, I believe. And I use a soft lemon ochre to color in the duck bills and to help mix the skin tone as well. I end up actually using predominantly watercolors for this spread, which is a little bit different than how I normally work because I do tend to like to layer colored pencil and marker over top of my watercolors, but for some reason when I try to do that, which you'll see later in the video, I hate it. It started to look very grimy and overworked, so I definitely think with ducks, especially white ducks, less is going to be more. Sometimes there are just spreads that you end up having to really push through because like throughout the process and even at the very end, you're not necessarily sure that it went the way that you wanted to. But I think what happens is when I look at this, I'm just not sure what I would do differently. I feel like I was using all the same techniques in terms of how I was using my brush to paint, but I just wasn't super confident in the product. You can see here I'm starting to try and add colored pencils a little early because I was getting a little unsure of myself, wasn't sure what I wanted to do, and I tried out on this first duck in the hands, and for the hands it goes fine, I guess, and even for like the little duck feet, I'm happy with the way that it accentuated the shape of the feet, but at least in person, yeah, you can see me kind of like just starting to overthink everything. I really wasn't happy with the way it was making the duck look. It was looking very overworked already, and I barely added anything to it. So I actually pull out my old sketchbook and look at painting that I quite like because I was like, okay, maybe if I look at something that I genuinely love that I did, I can kind of mimic that in something that's not going my way. I bust out the marker a little early to mess around with this duck, and I'm just like, no, I'm looking at the chickens, I'm looking at the duck, and I'm like, this is not working. Why does he look so dirty and weird? And I end up actually just starting to do my inking because I'm like, I need to ink this to see how I feel about what's going on. And honestly, I think that the inks were where I started to feel a little bit more confident. Like, okay, yeah, this does look like something I would draw, I guess. There's honestly always been something about inking that I love. I feel like it just really brings what I'm doodling to life in a way. And I don't know, I know a lot of people who can do lineless work and just, I don't know, try not to over rely on inking. But for me, I really, really like the way it looks every time. It makes me happy the second I start to ink something and it really starts to look the way that I want it to. I feel like those lines are just really important to the way that I want to draw and paint. You can see I have some of the ducks with like really big round black eyes and some of the ducks with smaller eyes, and I was kind of trying to figure out what kinds of expressions I wanted the ducks to use. And then I fold the sketchbook over itself so I can make the inking process a little bit easier because those rings on the spine really annoy me when I'm trying to ink, and that's like the only time they get in my way. And I know that's why a lot of people use the sketchbooks that they're not spiral bound, but I just really like the Be Creative paper, and I don't think that they have non-spiral bound sketchbooks, so I'm willing to put up with it because I just really like the paper. And honestly, I was using a non-spiral bound for a while where I could just lay the whole thing flat, and I wanted to change a pace, so that was also a reason why I started using the Be Creative paper, because I wanted a different format, a different kind of paper, and I was okay with trying the spiral bound. I found this adorable Pinterest post with a duck wearing a fuzzy frog hat, and I just absolutely had to include it in one of my sketches. It was so cute, and it kind of goes back to in my sketchbook tour video, I mentioned that there was a turtle that had like this soft crocheted covering over its shell that made it look like a stegosaurus, and I was excited to kind of give that texture another try as well. And I did have to throw a chicken in there. I couldn't help myself. I saw this Pinterest photo of a chicken with a little chicklet sticking out of its feathers, and I couldn't help but doodle it. I think I want to make it a bigger drawing in the future. And here I am cutting up a piece of paper, like old watercolor paper that I just hate using, but I use it to cover up pieces of my sketchbook because I could not stare at that over-rendered ducktail any longer. It was so much darker and, I don't know, muddier than the other ducks, which at this point I was actually pretty okay with. And even looking at it now, doing the voiceover, I'm like, yeah, you know, I like the way they look. I just don't know why I couldn't use marker and colored pencil. I guess it was just because they were a bit too heavy for the sketches when I'm trying to keep it very, very light, since the ducks are kind of a whitish color. So I have to fiddle around with where that piece of paper is going to go and how to glue it down. And normally I have a Gorilla Glue stick, but I couldn't find it, so I ended up having to use Elmer's glue, but it worked totally fine. I mean, in the past I've also just like taped them in, like these little pieces of paper I'm using to cover pieces of my sketches and drawing over. And it's worked in the past with just tape, so here I am adding a square to the ones that I kind of like, the ducks that I'm a fan of. I end up going back later and making that a lot darker so that the green pops a little bit more. You'll see that in the final shots of the video. I'm not sure I got that on full recording. And I started adding these deep, like, texture marks. I was trying to get a little bit more flow to this spread because on the other side I already have a spread done that's like themed around fish, and I just absolutely adored the way that it looked, and so I wanted to kind of try adding some words, some other textures, just more ways to fill the background and make the page kind of flow together a little bit more, with the kind of the tree coming down into the middle of the page but starting at the top, and the word Y kind of behind this duck that's just laying on his back. Definitely one of my favorites, by the way. And yeah, just kind of like trying to add more background elements rather than just a bunch of cluttered ducks, even though I am happy with the way that the other page looks. Overall, I just kind of wanted to integrate that into the spread a little bit more and see what happened. You can see here that the marks were a little bit darker than I intended. You can kind of see what I mean by that because I didn't go in on the other spread until much later and add those darker marks, but it was okay. I just felt like I was working a little bit backwards, honestly. And then here I am mixing a tone a hue that's kind of similar to the skin tone that I used on the other page and adding that to the tree branch just to even out the spreads and make sure that there's some of the same colors on each spread so they look at least a little bit cohesive. When it comes to yellows, I really like soft yellows that are a little bit more on the warm side. I do love Naples yellow, which is 100% a very cool toned yellow, but I really like soft muted yellows. I hate yellows that like punch you in the face. The only one that I think is kind of nice is Gamboge. I believe the one that I've used Winsor & Newton Cotmans, and I think I've used M-grams, and it's just like a very pretty color, but it is a little bit too vibrant for me. Personally, I really like muted yellow if I'm going to use a yellow. I think stylistically, I do like these ducks a little bit better. They feel a little bit more expressive, and I like that. I definitely feel like I took what I learned on the first page and kind of pushed it a little bit to, I don't know, make the subject matter of ducks a little bit more like how I would draw them and the situations that I would draw them in. But I'm still not necessarily sure that I nailed, I'm not sure the pink color was the best. Maybe I should have done oranges. I think if I could redo the page, and I probably will just do another spread of ducks just to prove to myself that I can draw them. I think that oranges would have been a much better pick, but I didn't want to do orange right after making all my chickens orange, so I don't know. Maybe I like orange a little bit too much. For this little portion, you can kind of tell that it's, like the video is a little bit slanted, and I'm annoyed that I didn't catch that. I try and pay attention to the video so that, I can make sure that it looks pretty consistent throughout, so I'm a little bummed that it's a little, like, top-heavy, like, slanted towards the top, but I'm hoping that that gets fixed here in the next little chunk. I'm just finishing up this first spread, this first go at the ducks, and I'm about to start, I'm about to start the other page, and I keep kind of flipping back and looking at the chickens. And you can see here I corrected that slant, I think, at least a little bit. And I'm starting on the next spread, which I started like a little too dark, I think, and I was a little bummed returning to it because I was like, whoa, some of these are a little bit darker than I intended them to be, some of the texture marks, but in the end I still think I was like okay with the way they looked. And then also in the top left corner, you can kind of see I drew like a derpy little platypus. I know on my sketchbook tour I had said that I drew some platypuses. Is that platypuses? I don't know. But I drew them, and I wasn't super confident with the way they turned out. Like, I liked the fuzzy texture, but I don't know. I saw this little image of a platypus while I was scrolling through the ducks, and I was like, oh my god, I have to draw that. So I went ahead and added him to the top corner, and I actually quite like the way that he looks. I feel like the derpier that I go with these sketches, oftentimes the better they are. As you can see, my cat decided to jump on my sketchbook as I'm filming, which you have to love when that happens. And as always, I feel like the second that I add line art, the pieces or the doodles really start to come together for me. It definitely helps, and I don't think that I rely on my line art in a way that is hurtful to my art, but I always enjoy adding it in the end because I just feel like it really pulls everything together and helps me kind of see what I'm actually painting and what I've done and what the different shadows have done to make the ducks look a little bit more like the way that I want them to. And yeah, in this specific case, the line art really helped me to feel a little bit more confident in what I was doing, but I'm still not confident in that pink color for sure. My favorite ducks that I drew definitely have to be the one that's laying on its back, belly up, with the word Y behind it, and then the one kind of in the middle of the page, directly under the tree, that's using its back legs to like push itself forward while its face is on the ground. I am very, very happy with that duck and the way that it turned out. I quite like the texture. I even like the pink a little bit in it. Like, I just feel like it's enough pink without being a little bit overbearing, and I just feel like they're both very expressive in a way that I'm very happy I was able to get across. I do have to say my favorite parts about my favorite part, I should say, about filming is just being able to watch a time lapse of my art be made. It's actually really, really cool. I've never experienced anything like it where I've got to see from start to finish my process. And I think that it's actually like a lot of fun to be able to look back on what I've done and see it progress and see it become something that I actually quite like, because I feel like people always know that your art goes through an ugly phase, but it's very funny to see that and then to see it get to a point where I'm like, you know what, maybe this isn't so bad after all. Here are the final shots of the sketchbook. In the end, I was like okay with the way that it turned out. You can see I darkened the green squares, added a little bit more texture to the duck with the frog hat. And here I am just kind of focusing on some of the sketches that I liked a lot. And with that, you know, that's the end of the video. So I really hope that you guys enjoyed it. I had, this wasn't the most fun I'd had recording a video, honestly, but it definitely wasn't bad or unenjoyable. It was just kind of like, oh, do I really have to record this process? I'm not sure that I like the way this is turning out, but I still think it's worth sharing because I feel like odd about the spread. I'm not sure if I like it or hate it, and honestly, I feel like it's still worth sharing because it's helping me to figure out how to film, helping me through the process of learning, honestly, what I'm doing. And it was still, in the end, there were a couple ducks on the sketchbook spread that I was actually very proud of. And those will probably be the only ones that I post on Instagram, but I guess you can come see the whole spread here if you really want to. I hope that if you're new to my channel, you decided to stick around until the end of the video, and I hope that you decide to join me on another video because I'm quite enjoying making them, and I really hope that there's something that sticks out to any of you watching and listening to this now that makes you want to stick around, like, comment, and subscribe. So with that, I will hopefully talk to some of you in the next video. Bye!